Good morning, everyone. It's Judith A. Cope. You're listening to Mad Love. Let's get into it. So, I have to honestly say, I am finally feeling better, which isn't fair because every day I have felt better. But now that I understand really what's going on in my body, I am making big leaps and bounds in terms of uh, knowing what to do to make sure that I'm not making myself sicker. Again, I'm not going to get into detail, but you got to be careful. There's so many things that can bother you or get out of whack, and you're just living your best life and you don't think it's going to affect you. But I could conceivably see a doctor never figure out what this was. I could see that. And so I know myself really well because I've had to maneuver around a few health challenges in my life. And it even goes back to my childhood, just the way I was raised and the conditions they thought I was born with. And I used to have to get these crazy glucose tolerance tests, which I'm sure they're much more modern by now, but they were archaic back then. You'd have to go to the hospital, or to the doctor's office, and it was an all-day thing. They just take blood from me all day. I was a little kid, and you'd be there giving blood for hours. And one time, I guess my numbers weren't great or something wasn't right, and I had to spend the night and in the hospital. And I remember my dad was like, "You are so tough." I was like, "Thanks, Daddy." And the weird thing though is they starve you. You can't eat, and you're a little kid. You're hungry. Uh, you can't eat. They're taking blood, and it was kind of painful. And then they would give you M&Ms when it was over. I always got a giant bag of M&Ms. Maybe not always, but I definitely remember when I got out of the hospital, I got like 2 big bags of M&Ms, which seems counterintuitive since they were checking to see if I was diabetic. But anyway, it's always been a lot with me and sugar and how my body processes sugar. And I'll just say this, it is very easy for me to get off the course with just the smallest amounts of sugar, which I also have a gluten sensitivity. So I think it's connected. But, they don't test us and care about us enough for me to have any idea how to, track this with a medical professional. These are just things I know about my own health, and I have to watch. So, with all that being said, I remember to watch another episode of Puffy or Sean Combs' The Reckoning on Netflix, and I remember the second episode. I think I had fallen asleep because I was like, there's parts I missed because I saw somewhere else where they mentioned that Puffy made Biggie pay for his own funeral. So like he wanted him to have the hugest funeral, but when he saw the expense, he basically wrote it off under Biggie's expenses, which sounds so low down. But I also know somebody who did something similar, not as scandalous, but on the way out, the administration before the last one that I worked for was like, "Oh, this one guy was making a big deal. I'm going to take you guys out to lunch, to the secretaries and to the office manager. I'm going to take you guys out to lunch. You guys have been great." And then when the bill came, he was like, "Yeah, give me the county credit card." Thanks for your heartfelt lunch, you cheap bastard. But anyway, yeah, so I saw that clip somewhere, so I said, let me go back and watch this one because I think I fell asleep on it. So as I was watching it, it was really fascinating because what I've come to understand about people like Sean Combs, and I don't doubt that these people really nailed his personality. He is a person that wants to present a certain external image, and I know this type of personality very, very well. The Scorpio male is something I'm super familiar with, and that's what Puffy is. they want to present externally strength and character and, they're the good guy. But internally, they're the most insecure, divisive people that I've ever met. Um, and of course, I'm generalizing, but I'm basing it off of 4 or 5 personalities I know very well, and they're all Scorpio males, and they can be very, very devious. And so, one guy in the documentary was saying how he always thought Puff was just this guy who liked nice clothes and wanted to dance around and didn't have any violence. I think it was Tupac's cousin. And he was like, but then the more you hear, it's all violence. And I don't think we've really even touched the tip of the iceberg around Puffy. I think there's another documentary about the beginning of Bad Boy. Like, how did he get this deal with Clive Davis? What did he have to do to not only get Clive Davis to fund him, who was just fired? He went from an intern to like the president of something, I think A&R. Then Andre Harrell, for some reason, thought Puff was too big for his britches, fired him, and he then goes to Clive Davis and gets his own record label. But also, I think, if based off what I've read, it also quietly was the end of Uptown Records. So basically, Clive swapped Bad Boy for Uptown. And Andre Harrell is another one who died fairly young, kind of mysteriously. And it's like, how are all these people dead around these folks? You know what I mean? Like, did he wait all those years to kill him because he fired him? You know? And he felt betrayed because up until then he thought of Andre as a father figure. And what did he have to do to get that deal with Andre? And then what did he have to do to get the deal with Clive? You know, and it's like, it's so dark, and I mean, people don't really want to wrap their brains around it, but if you look at the music industry in its entirety, almost everybody hates their label because they didn't pay them. I think the only person I haven't heard anybody complain about was Master P. But Birdman and Lil Wayne, they got into it. And Wayne stayed longer than anybody. But Birdman didn't want to pay anybody. And then Drake came along, and Drake never said that he didn't get paid, but he certainly made a hasty exit as soon as he could. You know, he got signed by Young Money, which was on Cash Money. And Wayne, you know, nurtured him and Nicki Minaj. And I mean, as soon as Drake could get off that label, he did. And he never said anything, but you wonder, did he get the money he was supposed to be getting? You know, people hate Birdman. People hate Puffy. You know, and think about it. Puff's label was really, that was when I was really paying attention to music. And I just couldn't believe, like, about 15 years ago, I started to think, where did all his artists go? I mean, because he had a ton of artists on Bad Boy, and they all had records coming out, but then they all disappeared. Total, 112. This was before the TV show bans. You know, he had Total, 112, Craig Mack, Biggie, and it was like you did a G-Dep. G-Dep had a good song for him. So you did an accounting of it, and you go, damn, all of Puff's artists are either dead or broke. You know, but Puff's living large. And it's like, man, he just took all of their publishing. It was unreal. It's unreal how he treated his artists. And I think they could go more in depth into that kind of stuff too. You know, especially since you got Kirk Burroughs, who ran the label. If you got him ready to keep talking, because you could just tell these people were really afraid to say anything with Puffy out on the streets. and he'll be back out soon. But I mean, I don't think he will have the same power that he had before. And like I said, he's got that aura around him, and they didn't get into this at all, but he definitely was practicing some sort of dark arts. There are definitely stories where he, you know, was summoning things. And I actually have seen a video of someone summoning an entity that wasn't God or Jesus. It was definitely, I paused the tape, prayed, and resumed. But I was clear that this person was not asking for God. And so there are people out here who practice all these different dark arts. You don't want to believe it because you would never do it. But, there are a lot of people out here who are dark and sinister. And if they don't start out a demon, they become a demon because people get greedy for power and control and money. And after a while, I think you have enough money, but your body just wants more control. And so then you start to believe all these crazy things about yourself, like you can just do whatever you want. You can just move people around. If you got to kill some folks, you just kill them. I was watching this video the other day. This girl was putting out hits on her competitors and people who were outing her as a fraud. And she was bold enough to do a FaceTime and asking somebody to put a hit out on asking this person to go kill some folks for her on FaceTime. Like, I don't know what people are thinking, but my old boss used to say it all the time. He'd be like, we don't catch the smart ones. And I have to say, that's probably true, because a lot of people do dumb things. Do not broadcast your crime, stupid. You might as well live stream it. This is me going to go murder my haters. Fuck you, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, why would you film it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But, people are out there. But I think it's all by design. That's what I'm saying. I think there's an architecture above what we know about, and they have greatly influenced this system that we live in. And they're fine with people losing their minds and not having enough money or feeling like they're more powerful than they actually are, and they can just do all this shit to people. I think they think it's a game, and it's sport, and they use our energy. Every time someone gets tragically gunned down, that energy, they harness that. They can use your pain to advance their evil, and give you more evidence that the world is evil, so you won't be enlightened or get focused or realize, hey, we live in one of the most advanced civilizations to our knowledge ever in history. If people wanted to end gun violence, don't you think it would be over? Don't you think it would be over? And you got all these goofy people who will say some shit like, well, white people don't want it to be. It's not a black and white thing. It's not. Go to Appalachia. It's a crime there too. And not very many people of color. It's not about race. It's about class. And in their minds, if you're not rich and you're not from these certain bloodlines, you're a peasant. And it don't matter what color you are. So these are complicated situations, but it's also very simple. You gotta pick a side. You gotta choose God over everything. And you gotta live your life like that. Because, you watch Puffy's documentary, and at times he's wearing 3-4 giant diamond encrusted crosses. And my whole thing is like, you can wear the cross, but, you have to be a certain type of person to actually be a Christian. Just because you talk about God, and he talks about God all the time, and it's like, you are an evil person. You've done nothing but evil. And you're up here talking about, you're up here talking about sorry, I got distracted. You're up here talking about God and what God told you to do and God this and God told me not to do nothing. Y'all got to do something. It's like you are a sick person because there's nothing godly about you. And I don't think he will be able to mount another trial like that. So if the government or any state decides to really mount a real case against him, it'll be over. Because that wasn't a real trial. That was, like I said, I think those were the people that did another softball trial. I can't remember what it is now, but that office and that particular person who brought the charges, those were just for show. That was just for theater. But he has some serious charges. And if you bring them properly, it won't just be, oh, he is a freak. He just likes weird sex. And she just wanted money, that kind of thing. There's a real case to be made against him. And we'll see if it ever gets made. But it doesn't matter because he's got all these other civil suits and he won't win. The burden of proof is a lot lighter in civil court. So, I don't know. I really don't. It's been very, very, very strange to watch all of this. But if you get a chance, check out that documentary again. It's worth rewatching. It was so much to take in the first time. But you watch it again and it's like, damn, this dude is really... There's probably another docuseries in there. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope you feel well. I'll see you in July. I'll talk to you in July. Let's go.